Well, it's now time to have a little chat here with Dr. Cheboiwo, the Director of Kenya Forest Research Institute. Thank you, Daktari, for finding time to join us.
Thank you for even having me here.
And by the way, you had placed your bet on which team? France?
Argentina.
Argentina?
Yes.
Why?
They were very aggressive and very determined to win this cup. Yeah.
Somebody told me maybe there were issues of indiscipline on their part.
They kept on improving, and with time, they knew that they were really destined to get this cup, given that they have stayed for a long time without it. So they really put everything in the football.
All right. Okay, now let's talk about this ambitious plan to plant trees. I know China has set up a framework, and they are headed they are headed in that direction. Ethiopia has also followed suit. India, I think they are also on track. But in terms of that ambitious plan, where is Kenya in that scheme of things? Where are we?
Tom, Kenya has been part of the global community in terms of setting its ambitious targets, I think since 2018, when the country set 10% tree cover as its target by 2022. And before His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta retired, he also set another target of 30% tree cover by 2050. And the new government has accelerated this attainment from 2050 to attain the 30% tree cover by 2032. As you have just said, the way the global communities are now doing is setting ambitious targets, because there's a lot of issues on climate change, shortage of forest products, environmental degradation, and trees are some of the solutions to these particular problems. So in the area of forest sector, many countries, as you have said, have set their targets, moving towards the 10%, which is minimum recommended, and others are setting bigger ambition, like this country, which has set 30% by 2032. So it's a really call and rally by government to all citizenry in the country to move towards attaining certain forest cover for purposes of production for climate change amelioration, and many others. Yes.
That last point you have made plugs into the second question I wanted to ask. And the question is the factors that will determine the success of such an ambitious plan. Because remember, the president spoke about mobilizing a 2 million strong army, majorly the youth. So a project of that nature requires a lot of planning. So what are the factors you think that will help in pushing that plan towards the desired goal?
As the president has said by himself that everybody will be on deck, it means there should be very strong coordination of all the efforts from the national, especially to the counties and the grassroots where the land is, and the tree planting will take place. As he has said, he will place almost 2 million green ambassadors into the ground. That one now will ensure that the land which is required to be planted are mapped, and then the planting take place, and then there is monitoring to ensure that these trees planted also grow to maturity as is expected. All this requires a very, very well structured coordination to ensure whatever we set the targets, we achieve it. And documentation or evidence has shown that we have achieved those particular set targets. So this one, the way it is said, requires a lot of well-structured coordination and supervision.
That framework is there, do you believe?
The government is already working on it. The government cannot just set such ambition without setting a well-structured framework, and I know it's going on well, and it will be launched very soon on Wednesday by the president himself. And then from there, you'll be able to see what is required of every citizen, faith-based organization, CPOs, that is a community-based, government itself, all government will be there, partners, all this will be amalgamated into an effort to drive towards that particular set target.
And even the citizens themselves?
Yeah, I'm saying that's the first. That's the front line of action.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I took some time to look at the Chilean example. There are tree planting programs for 3 decades. And one of the things that, one of the reasons that it failed was because of lack of an incentive policy. Okay? So do you think, or is it too early, that government should consider the possibility of having a framework that gives incentives to those people who would want to, be part and parcel of this agenda?
Tree planting is a choice. And anybody who wants to plant trees, we have basket of choices you will have to look for. There are people who will plant trees for purposes of amenity, to look beautiful, get shade, get windbreaks. Those are people who will plant for that purpose. And then at the end of it, they can be able to get products. There will be people who will be going for commerce or business. They will plant trees for business, who can plant up to 1,500 acres or hectares for that purpose. So within this framework, everybody has his space on what you really want to plant. So that is the major incentive. There will be other incentives which will come later, like carbon credits. That one will come if you maintain your trees. These are being negotiated globally, that those countries who can be able to document evidence they have maintained and they have these trees, they will be able to calculate the carbon sequestration they have undertaken, and they can be paid something like a bonus. But otherwise, the way we know it is that tree planting is usually driven by the owner of the land and what he wants that tree for. So I've said there are many purposes in which this particular landowner will. But when we rally Kenyans to do that, each one of them will be going with its own objectives. There cannot be one single objective in each of them. And that one will be the driving objective which makes him to decide to invest or to set aside the land for purposes of contributing to this particular ambitious 15 billion trees.
Yeah, I ask that because if you look at us, I mean, we're predominantly agricultural, yes. But look at that demographic of perhaps 18 to 32. A lot of them, there's a slow uptake in moving into agriculture. But before I forget, just explain to somebody who has heard that word, carbon credit. You called it carbon credit. Maybe somebody is watching and he doesn't understand what that means. What is it in simpler terms?
In simpler terms, trees sequester carbon, which is the real air which is giving the global or the globe to warm. So when you remove it, you reduce its concentration. So those countries which are now planting trees as part of contribution to mitigation of climate change will have, and the tree as it continues growing, it puts up volume, and that volume includes carbon component of it. So there will be more uptake of carbon from the air into this mass of trees. So what will happen is, there is already mechanisms in which countries which have planted trees are able to trade the carbons which are already stored in those trees for the time it is giving that tree without cutting. So you'll be paid certain money for certain volume of carbon you have sequestered into those trees or trees.
Okay, tell me, because you see it's very common to see prominent people like you launching tree planting initiatives, okay? And it's more or less carried on a very ad hoc basis. But we hardly hear of, the number of trees that survived to maturity, okay? And they say that if you cannot measure what you can't track, okay? So my question is, because I know countries like Vietnam have done very well, are we thinking of incorporating an integrated system where then we are able to track progress as we advance towards our goals?
That is what you have said is exactly what has been the problem in this country, where everybody was planting trees everywhere, every day, every year. But this is now, it's the first time when the country is really putting up a structure in which they will say, everybody to come and we plant the trees, and then we record these trees, and then we grow these trees, and we continue monitoring these trees to reach that particular target. So this one is all government, all citizens coming together to, and then the government is putting up structures in which these trees which we have grown and which we have planted and be growing are really monitored and documented, so that we are in a position to say, in this particular county, The following areas has been put in tree planting and the number of trees planted, and then we continue monitoring to see those trees are growing. Unlike before, where somebody could go and plant, and then nobody knows where he has planted them and if he has gone back. But even now, as we move, certain organizations are already hiring the local communities once they plan for the next 3 years to continue maintaining those trees to ensure that they survive. So there's more structures now. When you plan, you should not plan and you live like the way you used to do. You now plan and you record and you continue maintaining, either hiring the local people or doing it yourself if you are a farmer. So we are now putting a better structured way of planting the trees than before. And this is, I'll say, the first time in which we have come as a country from 2018 up to now, organizing ourselves to ensure that when we plant trees, we manage them, we maintain, and we grow them into big trees.
Okay. Yeah. So we expect to have a monitoring mechanism. I remember there was a survey that showed that one of the counties that was leading in terms of forest cover was, I think, Nyeri.
Nyeri, yes.
Nyeri was doing, was it 40% or something? Somewhere around there. Yeah. But if you look at the bottom of that pile, there was counties, I think, like Kitui and so on.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, so what is it that is favoring Nyeri?
Of course, you must be sure that the climatic conditions are very, very critical in tree growing.
Number one,
and in terms of cheapness, in terms of the cost, and in terms of also that tree performing well. And so as compared to drylands or midlands, trees which are there take longer, and it will be very expensive to maintain them as compared to the highlands. And also, reservation of forest estates, which is government, were done mostly in the highland or high potential areas like in countries like Yomarakwet, Nyeri, and so on. So they have higher advantage as compared to the other countries where there was no forest reservation. So the forests which are there contribute to their percentages easier. And the farmers were able to borrow the technology tree and the technique of planting trees from the forest department as early as 1950s when they were marking boundaries. So culture of tree growing, it was more pronounced in the high potential areas as compared to the drylands.
The drylands?
Yes.
And by the way, when you talk of drylands, my mind went to areas like Kitui, dry areas. And I think you're working on a project there. How's that going?
What we have done in Kitui since 1985, we started one of the most intensive trials of potential tree growing in the drylands. And in that particular period, we tested up to 88 species and provenances which can do well in the drylands. From those 88, we have made some recommendation of 12, and then now more advanced on 7, 8, and 2 are now being undertaken tree improvement programs to do the commercialization. So we have done in the drylands, we can now, in fact, this particular year, we have gone around the counties in the drylands trying to get land where we can demonstrate these good performing technologies to enable tree growers and investors in the drylands to be able to commercialize or grow commercial trees.
As we come towards the close of this interview, there are some critics who are arguing that some of these tree planting initiatives, they don't really address the root causes of environmental degradation. What do you tell those critics?
This country, the degradation are in various levels, and trees is one of the elements which can try to stabilize soil and water. There are trenches, there are terraces, there are many other interventions which landowners can undertake. So trees is only one of the options which can really help the country stabilize soil erosion. You see our waters are very red if you move around. These are soils we are moving from lands and making these lands infertile. So the trees is only one of the component interventions in which it can be able to help you manage conservation within a landscape.
Nairobi is now known for holding major international conferences. I know there is something that is coming up.
Yeah.
What is it we are bidding?
We are happy to announce as KEFRI that we from Brazil, we have been preparing a bid to bring in scientists into this country in 2029 in what's called UFRO Congress 2029, the 27th, and only 19 countries have held this particular Congress in its 125 years, and KEFRI now, for Kenya, is now the finalist with Edmonton, Canada. That's Nairobi and Kenya at the finalists for 2029 UFRO Congress.
Wow. And
the first vice president of UFRO will be here tomorrow to evaluate the venues which we have proposed as KEFRI. Yeah. That is KICC and University of Nairobi.
KICC good.
Yes, so once they finish, it's only one day exercise.
Yeah.
When they finish, we shall be in India in April 2024 to do final discussions with Edmonton, Canada, and then it will be announced, and the winner will be given the certificate to start preparation for 2029 in Stockholm, Sweden, April 2024.
2024.
We are very, very happy that we are the only two out of the almost potential 121 countries which have not held this particular international congress.
Yeah, we are just coming off the World Cup finals, which Argentina won. Tell me, what stands between us and winning that bid to host that conference? Because you know why I'm asking?
Yes.
Because we've hosted, remember the Blue Economy Conference?
Yes.
How many heads of state?
Yes.
All right? How many delegates came here? How many people were on that conference? Many. I think it was over 30 heads of state, heads of delegations and so on. So Kenya and Nairobi has actually demonstrated that, you know what, we have that global muscle.
There are two factors. One, the government commitment, that is one of the requirements of the rules, which they have to commit that they will provide all the conducive environment to hold this particular conference.
Yeah.
We have all the facilities. Even I started this particular one, I did not know the capacity, as you have said, which Kenya can do. We have also the advantage that it will be the first time being held in Africa. We got endorsement from AU and other regional bodies in East and Central Africa and even Southern Africa. So we are really having very great advantage as against Edmonton, Canada. But as I said, the government commitment and our presentation tomorrow of the venues which we have already visited ourselves and evaluated, and they are first class. So we are seeing, we are winning this.
I thank you so much. And good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck. Those two critical things, government commitment and their level of preparedness in the presentation tomorrow. Dr. Joshua Cheboiwo, Director of Kenya Forest Research Institute, talking to us, giving us some insights, and basically helping us to better understand the issues around moving the country to that green space, planting trees. And you remember the president announcing that there is a 2 million strong army, huge percentage of them, the young people. Well,